Yeah, they did. I think you have to credit the way Dortmund went at them early on. They didn't have no quality. They struggled, and you can expect that away from home. It's always going to be difficult for the away sides, especially in a derby. I expected a little bit more. I expected a little bit of fight, a little bit of grit. And by the end of the game, it was four, but it was going on five or six, which will obviously be frustrating for the Schalke fans because, as we said on the previous show, when they were 4-0 down a couple of years ago, they came back and got a 4-4 when Naldo scored in the last minute. So this is a team that's used to fighting and used to grafting. I didn't see that today, which will be a real worry for the Schalke fans.
Now, what was interesting Yeah, go on, Ali.
I just thought that these were two teams that looked totally differently prepared for this game. And I thought that Schalke essentially fell short of understanding the situation around the game. They looked, as you described it, a team without life, a team without that fight and the grit that Don is talking about. But I think it comes from the fact that they couldn't quite adjust to the new normal, to no crowd, no atmosphere, no environment. And by the time they try to react, Borussia Dortmund is up 2-0. And so when you don't have the things that you're used to having as part of your daily routine and you don't adjust properly, you look like you're not prepared. You look like you're not ready. And Schalke looked to me a team that was not ready, whereas Borussia Dortmund, even though they were not as clean as they wanted to be, it was still a team that was doing a lot of good things out of the field. But most of all, they had a certain intensity to the match, which Schalke never brought.
What was interesting after the match, I thought, is, of course, that traditionally when Dortmund win, they go and salute the yellow wall, the fans. They did that, of course, after this victory, despite there was no one in attendance. Don, would you have been comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think it's just players having a little bit of fun. I think it's one of them things where you even saw in Haaland's celebration, he was sort of trying a tricky little dance in the corner. He knew he's respecting the sort of 2-meter rule. So the players always like to have a little bit of fun, even in tricky situations. You know, we've been in dressing rooms, me and Ali, when something's really hard to deal with that's going on inside of a dressing room, we always make fun of it first, and it sort of gets you over the line. And even at the end there, when you saw the Dortmund players going up to the imaginary yellow wall, I think it was all a little bit of fun. I think the one interesting thing I took from today, just on the broader picture, the bigger picture, and obviously Ali mentioned about Schalke not turning up and having no quality, and he was absolutely spot on. But there was only one home win today, so I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, where because there's no home fans, there's no away fans, there's no fans inside the ground. I'm wondering actually if it might be a little bit easier in the remaining games behind closed doors, that it's a little bit easier for the away teams to go away from home and play in intimidating atmospheres. Because, as I said, only one home win today, and that was Dortmund's win.
Yeah, we had 5 matches, of course, all being played at the same time. Leipzig taking on Freiburg. This was a crazy game, Gab, because there were so many chances for both sides. It looked like Freiburg had won it late on. However, VAR intervened and correctly ruled it offside. Leipzig with literally a couple of open goals that they missed. Obviously, both teams a little rusty, but it was entertaining.
It was entertaining. The downside for Nagelsmann is obviously Leipzig now 4 points back, and it's looking uphill. I thought it took them a little while to get going, but yeah, there were chances on both sides, but Leipzig had many more chances, I thought, and many better chances. And you know, if you look at the weird goal that of Vincenzo Grifo's corner kick, that's the kind of goal that if a striker scores it, if Ibra does it, you figure, whoa, look at that genius with a back heel. Except we know that that's not what this guy tried. It just kind of bounced off his heel and went in. You know, you don't expect to give up goals like that. And I think this is one of those games that you just have to kind of write off. And Leipzig in the second half, I thought, did more than enough to win and win by several goals. It just didn't happen because that's football.
Don, you were bigging up Leipzig's chance yesterday using phrases like 4-5, 6-0. What happened?
What happened is Freiburg were better than I thought, and I underestimated Freiburg because I remembered sort of at the start of the season when this was a Freiburg side that was sitting in the top 4, and they've drifted of late. And I just thought Leipzig, I've seen so much of Leipzig, and they're so good going forward. I mean, these this was a Leipzig side months ago that were beating teams by 8 goals or beating teams by 5 and 6. Net average was at one point nearly 4 goals a game. It's now crept down to about 2.7, 2.8. But I think it's just one of them games where I was tuning into both games. I was flicking over, and every time I seen Leipzig in possession, I thought they knocked it around really well. I thought their passing was quite slick. I think Nagelsmann is a very, very intelligent coach, and I think what he'll do is he'll try and reiterate to the players that this game was probably all about the end result, which they obviously didn't get, but they got a point and they can move on and they can build on the team spirit. They can build on a little bit of fitness because they've got the quality, Leipzig. I'm pretty sure we'll see them going on a run in the next couple of weeks.
Well, Don can put a happy spin on it, Ali, but this is 2 points drop. No doubt about it, considering you are chasing Bayern Munich, you know I'm going to drop too many points now between now and the end of the season. This isn't good enough for a team who want to be considered proper title contenders.
Yeah, I just don't think you have the time to give it the positive spin that Don just spoke of, in which he said, well, you just kind of move on and regain momentum over the next couple of weeks. Well, you don't quite have the time to do that if you take into consideration that you're expecting Bayern Munich to win their games. And now you have Monchengladbach jumping over you, and Borussia Dortmund also won. And so if you are Leipzig and you're a true title contender, this is the sort of result that you look back and say, goodness, this is not what we needed. Because at the very least, what you want to do, not only with Dortmund and Borussia Monchengladbach, you have to keep pressure on Bayern Munich. And you have to make sure that you're right there, that when they look over their shoulder, you're right there waving at them and saying, we're not going away. Now, if Leipzig is dropping points, I think that's something that Bayern Munich will look at and say, okay, that's one less team that we have to worry about. We concern ourselves with getting our 3 points and we move on with our lives. Leipzig is now chasing, and I just don't know that they're good enough to catch up.
Gab, I feel it was when you came on the show a few months ago, all excited about the stat that they've scored 3 goals in 11 straight matches. It seemed to go downhill from then.
Yeah, evidently I jinxed him. Evidently, I'm responsible for Patrick Schick missing that sitter, or actually those sitters, at the end. Look, I thought this was a really good performance from Leipzig, and I think Nagelsmann again showed his versatility, switching from the 3 to the 4, moving in the second half. He made bold choices. He went for it, and it didn't work out this time around. And I tend to agree with Ali that these are definitely points dropped, but I don't see how Leipzig can get better, because obviously from here till the end of the year, you need your opposition to drop points, and that's obviously out of their hands.
Borussia Mönchengladbach then, as I mentioned, meanwhile, with a victory away against Eintracht Frankfurt, moves them up above Leipzig in the table. This game was pretty much done and dusted, Ali, wasn't it, after the opening 6 minutes?
And it's yet another example of a team that is ready to play and a team that is not. And Eintracht Frankfurt, even though they're at home, they almost were surprised that Mönchengladbach was on the front foot, that all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute, we're playing a real game. Yes, it's a real game. Yes, it counts. Yes, it's not preseason. Yes, I know the environment is not perfect. Yes, the fans are not here. But you better be ready to play, because if not, 35 seconds in, you're down 1-0. And that's exactly what happened to Eintracht Frankfurt. Mönchengladbach didn't care. They pushed the ball forward, a couple of combinations, it's 1-0. Then a couple more combinations, it's 2-0. And really from then on, it was game over. Frankfurt just kind of huffed and puffed a little bit in the second half, but really, there was a lot of difference between the two teams, and I thought that Mönchengladbach was far the superior group, certainly today, in terms of intensity and in terms of quality.
Gladbach didn't even have to get out of second gear, really, did they, Don?
No, they didn't. And it's an Eintracht Frankfurt side that's been struggling. I mentioned on another show previously that when you take 50 goals, you take 50 goals out of Eintracht side and Luka Jovic and Sebastian Haller, you're going to have to replace them. Pacienza is a decent player. He didn't start today. Dost played. You've got to play to Bastot's strength if you're going to play him as a number 9. You've got to get the ball wide. You've got to get crosses in the box for him to attack. And they've lost their sparkle. This was a side that probably last year got very deep, semi-finalists into Europa League, but the season before, you felt as though they were going places. You felt as though they were on the cusp of doing something special. But now, all of a sudden, by losing those 50-plus goals, they're gonna have to do something smart in the summer, get the season over with, and try and rebuild. But try and rebuild them into a good side. They've lost some very, very good players at the moment. Philip Kostic has been their best player, and they've got to make sure they keep hold on to him, because he's a real genuine workhorse. He works incredibly hard. He's got a fantastic left foot. He gets his goals and assists. So what they mustn't do, Eintracht, is lose more players. But that was a damaging result when you lose at home against a good Gladbach side. They are very, very easy on the eye and can lose against anyone, Gladbach, but can beat anyone at the same time. So that was a stunning result for Gladbach.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.